This week I decided to make a skateboard and longboard press from commonly available hardware store materials. So let's begin. This is a list of materials that you need, and soup to nuts, this thing's going to cost about $43 or $44. But if you have some screws and nails or wood laying around, this could very easily be only $30 or $25. The tools you're going to need are also displayed on the screen, just very common tools that pretty much everybody should have. I ended up using a circular saw to cut the woods as well, so just keep that in mind. It makes it a lot easier to have the right machines. First, I'm going to cut my 2x4 in half, so it's two roughly 4-foot sections, and then place them on the ground like shown. I'm going to take my common board and place it on top of those two 2x4s, and then square everything out. Make sure that the edges of the 2x4s are flat with the edge of the common board. Basically, I'm just making those square with the edge to strengthen it up later. We don't want our common board to bend when we put our beam onto it. Now I'm just going to use the extra pieces of 2x4 that I have to weigh it down a bit. I'm going to use one other piece of 2x4 to just get an idea of how thick those strengthening supports are. We want to drill the screws roughly into the center. It doesn't need to be supremely accurate, but you just want to have an idea of where the center of your 2x4 is. Now I'm just going to use our 2.5-inch long wood screws to screw directly through our board and into the 2x4 planks. I'm going to screw one screw into each end, as you see here. That way the rest of the 2x4 is going to be somewhat secured against the board. Once you have those two drilled, you can continue to drill 4, 5, or 6 more holes down the length of the board. I only put 6 here. You should probably do something more like 8 or 10. You want this to be nice and strong for when you actually go to bend. This should be one nice solid piece. We're going to now flip the board over and start building the inside supports. I'm just going to measure the distance from the interior of one 2x4 to the other. Do that for both sides as well as the middle, just in case you're a little bit off. Mine was off by about 1/8 of an inch from one side to the other. Now you're going to want to measure 2 pieces that are going to go on one end, 2 pieces for the other end, and 1 piece for the middle section. You can add more if you want, but I found this to be sufficient strength. Lay them out as shown. 3 are going to be resting vertically, and the 2 at the very end are going to be resting basically flat against the board. I'm going to use just some tape to secure them. I had blue painter's tape. You could use duct tape, masking tape, scotch tape, whatever you want. Just secure it down so those things aren't going to move when we flip this board over. We're going to flip this over so we can actually screw in those 3 braces there. And that's pretty simple. We're going to use the tape as our guide and just draw a line where we need to sink some screws, and sink 2 or 3 screws into each support beam. I'm using a 2x4 here also to basically position my drill and make sure I'm not drilling into the little gap between the main structural support and these interior supports here. So you want to leave about an inch of clearance between the outer stabilizers and the inside ones. Once you've pre-drilled that, I'm just going to sink some of these screws in. And it is very important to pre-drill in wood. Even with self-tapping screws, I don't like to take the chance. It makes it more accurate when you actually screw it in. And now just place the laying down boards on there. I'm going to use a piece of tape to secure it in, and then drill through on the side. I'm going to drill 2 screws into each side, and then repeat it on the other side. So you're going to have 8 screws in total holding those in. Strip off the tape, and don't forget about the middle guy as well. Drill 4 screws into him too. So that's basically the base done. We're going to need our bolts and our metal hardware essentially now. Now is a good time to find the center line on each side too. So find your center point. And I'm going to go in about 2.5 inches. That's where my 1/2 inch hole is going to be to support our bolts. So 2.5 inches from each side, and just measure the corresponding distance on your main 2x4, which is going to be your beam. Drill that out with an 1/8 inch drill bit first on each side so it kind of locates it. Throw in your 1/2 inch drill bit and drill all the way through. Make sure you have a piece of scrap wood or something underneath it so you don't bang into the ground with your 1/2 inch drill bit. You might shatter it, honestly, if you do that. Now do the same thing for your main beam. Drill through that with the 1/2 inch on each side in the corresponding position, and make sure it's nice and clean. you want it to be nice and smooth so you can fit that bolt through without any problems. I just put the bolts in just to test fit it, and if you're having any difficulty getting them on, you could just use your rat tail file to widen out the holes a bit. Now is as good a time as any to draw the center line, and we're going to put the side mounts on as well. We want the board to bend upward, so we need some material on the outside. I'm just making sure that they are aligned on each side. I'm just going to nail those in really quickly. So the idea of those yardsticks, it's actually two of them stacked on top of each other, is to help bend the board upwards. Now we can assemble our bolt, and as I was saying, if it's difficult to get in, just use a rat tail file to widen out the hole in your beam, and then try it again. Slide everything on. Don't forget the washers. I only have one here, but I switched to two later on just so it was nice and strong. My washers originally kind of coned out, but after I upped it to two 1/16 inch washers, there was no problems whatsoever. Screw everything together, and you're going to use those two wrenches to tighten and loosen them once you put a board in. So it's pretty simple, and here's the final result. I have 2 pieces of 3-ply in there to simulate a skateboard deck, and I have 3 pieces of 3-ply in there right now making a longboard. But that's next week's project. I hope you liked it, guys.